And welcome back to another episode of the Permissionless podcast, brought to you, of course, by the team at Guardian, as always. And of course, here on the Permissionless podcast, we're going deep with DeFi teams, discussing everything from their journey, how they got into DeFi, what they're working on today, how did they find their way to what they're working on, and I think really importantly, where do they see DeFi going in the next 5 to 10 years. Today, we have a really special conversation with Joel from Gelato, and we get to really discuss everything that they're exploring, all their different services and some of the new offerings in this new sort of niche of Rollup-as-a-Service that Gelato is currently going after. We get to hear a bit about the institutions that they're interfacing with and the types of clients who are trying to build on these Rollup-as-a-Service, and specifically what kind of features and infrastructure is important to this different array of different teams building on rollups and spinning up their own chain environment. And then finally, we get to dive in and talk to what are some of the pain points of scaling an organization and trying to bring some of these more complex products to market at scale for many different clients with all sorts of custom needs, etc. But of course, before we get into that, my name is Owen, and about three and a half years ago, I co-founded Guardian, and we set out based on the premise that DeFi would house trillions of dollars of assets, and that the level of assurance and security across the application stack would need to be absolutely just a stepwise difference from where it is the day that we began. And today I'm happy to say that we have achieved that standard at Guardian using not one, but two auditing teams, as well as a lead researcher and a full-time dedicated fuzzing engineer to absolutely secure the crap out of the entire application stack and be able to be so confident in it that we actually, in fact, are able to put up our own funds as a bounty on the contracts. And so really, at this point, we have achieved the level of security necessary, and really we're waiting for DeFi to catch up. And now, without further ado, let us get into this discussion with Joel from Gelato. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Really interested. We've got, really so much to dive into, but I think it would be best, maybe we could just start off. How did you even find your way into working at Gelato? How did you find your way into DeFi in the first place?
Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for having me. That's a good question. That brings me back to COVID times. Actually, not really. I'm originally from Argentina, and I think that it was 2014 when I finally had some extra spare money to invest, and I was okay, what should I do? And somehow I opened the chart of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin went from, I don't remember, from 100 to 200, and I was, I missed the pump. I'm too late for this. Let me do something else. I ended up buying some Argentinian bonds. So that was
no, dude.
So, and I didn't touch crypto anymore, but then it was 2020. I moved to Singapore, COVID hit, and I was by myself. I didn't know anyone, and restrictions were quite tight. So I was close at home and with a lot of time. And I allocated the time to of course, internet research, and I ended up into the rabbit hole of NFTs and DeFi and all the Olympus DAO and forks.
Yeah.
To me, I'm a former software engineer, and what hooked me, or the aha moment for me when I understood the concept of the building blocks, right? The composability. Yeah. And I saw what you can achieve with open source, right? You can build multi-billion SaaS using open source tools. And it was, if you can do the same, but you can do the same with money, with those primitives, this is going to be huge. And that's when I fall into the rabbit hole, and I never left. And at some point I was, I'm spending too much time in crypto. On my personal time, maybe it's time to just to converge my career and make the jump. And that's how I ended up switching full time.
That's awesome, dude. Well, I mean, first of all, I totally agree on the power of DeFi and composability. I think that will just continue to compound in our favor. But also, dude, it's so funny that so many people, I've talked to a handful of people now, including myself, who were almost like onboarded into DeFi through Olympus DAO and like crazy like APYs, where it's like the APY can't even fit on the UI. It's like quadrillions of percentage return. So yeah, dude, that's just funny to hear. I mean, I don't know how deep you went, but like, man, I was in all of the Ohm forks, like Spartacus, on Phantom, and like I think there's like Hector DAO. Yeah, just tons of them.
I'm still holding. I'm a holder.
Yeah, that's not good, dude. Unless it's Ohm. I mean, Ohm is like you're not down too bad, but anything else is, man.
Compounding.
Yeah, compounding losses. Yeah, it was really impressive. It was like I didn't know that you could lose this much. But
Yeah, it was incredible. But the surprise for me was that it was even touching some people out of my small bubble because
yeah,
there was
yeah.
a spreadsheet that someone built. Is like if you put this money, you can retire. If you put that money, because this is how big is the
Yeah.
APY, and somehow it reached my non-crypto friends. And it's like, hey, should we
Wow.
do this? It's like, and I was no, guys, please don't do that. This is
Yeah.
an experiment that is not going to end up well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
Exactly.
was surprised about that.
Dude, the I could tell the top was when even do you know Ty Lopez?
Yes.
Dude, Ty Lopez had his own Ohm fork. I don't
Yeah,
even
I
know
remember
what
that.
it's called. It was he like bought Radio Shack and he turned it into an Ohm
Yep.
fork. It was like the wildest thing. But yeah, dude, those were pretty wild times for for DeFi. But I mean that was such a great onboarding moment, and it's almost like the cost of entry to DeFi is to like invest in some crazy coin or DeFi project. And just like I will say, like I lost pretty much all the money that I put into those projects, but I learned everything about Olympus. And I was like, because the model was so interesting, what they're doing with staking and bonding and all that stuff. So yeah, it's kind of like the cost of entry. I mean, once you go deep on a project like that, you're not leaving DeFi. So, I mean, cost of entry, there is no college course for DeFi, so that's kind of the equivalent, I suppose. But yeah, dude, cool to hear more folks coming in to DeFi through Olympus. Glad to know I'm not the only one who lost my seat on all those forks. But yeah, I mean, picking up from there, how did you go from, okay, so got a little interested in DeFi, started to learn some of the primitives and started to see like the power of composability and the fact that anybody can come and build anything, really. How did you go from there to ultimately getting to where you are at Gelato?
So it was not an easy journey. At some point, I decided to, okay, this is too much of my personal time in crypto. I was leading product at Foodpanda, which is a delivery app in Southeast Asia, one of the biggest ones. And I was interviewing with a startup in Singapore. They were trying to build a self-custody solution for institutions. And FTX happened while I was in the interview process. And I was, okay, maybe this is not going to happen now. I will need to wait a little bit longer. And basically, I was in other processes at the same time, and they were all okay. We are going to pause here and reevaluate in the future. But I really wanted to do the move, so I compromised a lot, and I ended up joining the company because it was time for me. I knew that there are cycles, but then the good times definitely at the end of the day will come back. I ended up joining this startup, being there, building for a year, and then for other reasons we ended up moving to Switzerland last year, and I was on my gap year building on Farcaster some frames
Nice.
and some side communities there where the founders reach out, the HR, and then the founders reach out, and they were looking for someone to lead product at Gelato, and it
Yeah.
was the perfect fit. So I decided to stop my sabbatical year and join Gelato, and it was
Nice.
decision ever. It's like we've been having so much fun and we built so many things in the last 12 months
Yeah.
that it's like loving it. Best experience ever.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. And what particular experience do you think it was that made you the right fit for this role at Gelato they had previously?
Sorry?
Like what experience from, so you're working at this company in Singapore, what sort of like product area were you working on there that ultimately translated to what you guys are building today?
I think that in this case, what Gelato wanted is they were looking for someone that could lead across all the products, have the kind of generalist mindset, because at the end of the day, you can zoom out enough where a product is just a product and principles applies. And then you just need to go extremely deep when you need to have the experience.
That's right. Yeah.
And I had my year of experience building this Web3 self-custody company.
Yeah.
That was enough just to allow me to have the conversation. And then again, I spent a lot of my free time, so I knew more or less about all the primitives and first
Yep.
and the mental models. So I think that the onboarding was relatively straightforward and catching up with all the products.
Yeah, it's extremely important, like for somebody at Gelato to be a DeFi native and be using all these applications. I mean, at the end of the day, those are your customers, those are your users, are the applications in DeFi. It's such an interesting business model where you're serving the applications that are serving the DeFi users. And if you're a DeFi user yourself, you see exactly what kind of a UX that you want And like as a product person, you can sort of see like what needs to happen infrastructurally to be able to get there. And I mean, so you guys have a suite of products at this point, and I think a lot of them are aimed around like obviously they're at the infrastructure level, but I think the end outcome for users and as a middleman for that, the apps is the UX. Like how do we get the UX right for the user so that we can make the app experience as seamless as possible and ultimately hopefully get to the next sort of wave of users that will be able to enter DeFi and not have to interact with like MetaMask and stuff like this. What do you guys see as like the ultimate end vision for what you're trying to provide to your users, which are the applications?
I think that you hit the nail. This is basically what we challenge ourselves every day, which is how do we make our developers' lives easier, first
Yeah.
and foremost, because those are our customers, those are real users. And then how do we empower them to build the best experience, right? Regardless if it is sponsoring transactions, right? So users
Yep.
can have a Web 2.0 experience or having their own block space that can satisfy their needs, right? And
Yep.
if there is not an opportunity, there is not a solution in the market that will satisfy that, then we will build it in-house. So this is
Yep.
what happened with Rollup. So we jumped into the Rollup market a
Yep.
year ago. We started with OP and Orbit, pretty much the standard frameworks. But then we saw needs for other type of solutions, right? And we couldn't find those solutions in the markets. And that's when we developed ABC, which is our own sovereign rollup framework for these applications that they need tons of block space, right? We're talking about gigagas per second.
Yeah.
And that's how we unlock also those opportunities. So at the end of the day is how do we empower our developers? How do we empower
Yeah.
developers so they can innovate, right? Because if everybody at the same time is using the same tools, then it's getting difficult to innovate. So we are pushing those boundaries.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
it's also that a lot of teams are solving the same problems multiple times. Like every team has to go and address like, oh, we want to have gasless transactions, or every team, another one that's, kind of tangential to user UX, but is more like developer UX is like monitoring and introspection, like having introspection into your crypto app. Like every team that we work with basically has to build their own monitoring apparatus and be able to like put up like charts and stuff, maybe with like Dune, but there's no like really easy modular monitoring setup for teams and stuff like this. So I think there's a ton of work to be done there. But I think Brendan, you had something to say.
Yeah, just with like that goal that you mentioned of servicing developers in mind and like, branching into rollups and then even there like diversifying what types you're offering. Now like crypto 2025, like what do you see as developers like wanting the most lately? What are you, thinking about building next? If you can share anything about that too at Gelato.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'm happy to see that finally on the early calls with many developers, it's all about Web 2.0 experience. How do we abstract all the complexities? It's like,
Yeah.
how do we bring the next wave of users? And even for projects like Infinex, right, that they are targeting crypto native, but they are still, how do we push the boundaries and have this Web 2.0 experience? So definitely that's the topic of the year. I think that wallets as a service providers, they have a big opportunity here, and they are the ones that can innovate a lot. But at protocol level, Pectra is going out pretty soon. And that's going to level up the game for everybody. Able to convert a EOA into a smart account is definitely great. It removes a lot of complexity. It simplifies things for the user as well and the developers. So we're extremely bullish on that. We've been building many demos and sharing them with our customers because we really want them to leverage that.
Yeah, and of course with all of these, so it's such an interesting place to be because we're right at that moment where, in my opinion, we've reached the TAM of individuals who like really care about self-sovereignty and they care about their self-custody and they care about their privacy, and their ability to transact with peers directly. And they care about that enough, like they're just over the threshold to where they're willing to open their laptop and like download MetaMask and use this. But I think really to grow beyond that, we've got to make a fundamental shift in like our go-to market or like, the experience, how we're able to reach users. And I think we start to hit up on a lot of resistance there, one of them being like just straight up regulatory resistance. And of course, like if you want to get into the App Store, now you've got to, be compliant with Apple and make them happy and all of this stuff. But another one of these is just UX, right? And I think there's a few, so I definitely want to talk about the Rollup-as-a-Service. But even before that, there's a lot of interesting things changing, like you said, at literally the chain level, at the Ethereum level and the client level that are affecting what this UX ultimately ends up looking like at the top of the stack and how it's achieved technically. So with respect to specifically like the relayer service that you guys have, how is this changing at all with the introduction of 7702 or some of these other upgrades that are happening? What does that look like today?
So our relay is currently 4.3.7 fully compatible, and we have Infinex and we have Courtyard, which is one of my favorite projects.
Yep.
I think that they really nailed the user experience. And now we also made it compatible with 7702. And what we are still trying to figure it out is how do we even make it easy for you to start, right?
Mhm.
It's like, what if you don't even have to go into our dashboard and create an API key? How can we make it extremely easy for you to start to sponsor transactions
Mhm.
on testnets and start to build your own user journey? So there we try to partner with providers. So in this case, we partner with our friends of Dynamic. They're a wallet as a service provider. And then
Mhm.
we're trying to build this experience that then we demo to our customer to show them what is feasible, right? And of course, that we have a big advantage here because most of the time we run the rollup for those customers as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And we can deploy the services. Services are co-located on the same regions. So the performance you will get through the combination of our relay or Web3 functions and RAS is hard to match, right? And then when it comes to games or perpdexes, that's where we see the big difference.
Yeah, and you guys are, well, now I think all the perp dexes, they're trying to catch up and they're trying to have like UX feature parity. I think Hyperliquid it was an kind of a disruptor in the UX side, and I think that's what fed a lot of their hyper growth. Are there any apps that you look at like a Hyperliquid that you just see like, because I imagine as a person working in product in Gelato, you're probably looking at a lot of the UXs and studying a lot of the UXs. Did you look at Hyperliquid and say like, wow, this is an experience we need to be able to support for every other application? Like what sort of stood out to you about that experience?
Yeah, definitely. But I also mentioned Courtyard, which
Yeah.
is a customer of us, and they have this experience. They basically are tokenizing cards, like a Pokemon cards or baseball cards. And to be honest, it's the best experience that
Yeah.
I've seen so far. You never realize that this is about crypto. You don't see a transaction. You don't have, it's full abstracted. So that's on the top of my list. I still have to find a better experience than
Yeah.
Courtyard. But we do also have Infinex that they are building a powerful wallet using our Gelato services, where the experience is also super smooth with passkeys. Or Rayad, which is also a Paradex, which they are targeting a different set of customers. So may not be for Web 2.0, but they are optimizing for other things, right? So at the end of the day, when I also evaluate user experiences, I try to understand what are they trying to target, right? Because
Yeah.
everybody needs or want to have this Web 2.0 experience, because that's not their user, right? You may be targeting just enterprises, and then the whole experience is different, and you just need to bring a BitGo or a Fortify or a Fireblock into your chain because that's how your customers are operating. So definitely there are a lot of nuances and intricacies there. But yeah, Hyperliquid, they did an amazing job there. And I
Yeah.
think that they set the bar. I'm happy to see that because now it's one of the reasons that most likely now when we are talking with many projects, new projects, they are just starting from there. It's like, okay, the bar is here. We need to meet the bar here.
Yep.
Then we need to innovate on top of that.
Yeah, and of course, so you guys are constantly trying to figure out, well, how do we get, I mean, I guess your ideal is like, how do we get literally every application to that level of experience? What is it that's missing that you guys saw? I think, maybe this even leads into the RAAS that you guys are working on. What pieces of the stack do developer teams need to get to that end experience?
I think that there are two phases, right? One is the phase when the teams are starting to build and they are starting to collect what are all these pieces of infrastructure that we need to put together. And this is where I'm really spending a lot of time on making things easier for them. So for example, when you are launching your chain, most likely you will need oracles, you will need an indexer, you will need an explorer, of course, a bridge, etc. But for some of those things, like if you want interop or you want layer 0, it's going to take you a few months, right? So how can we make it happen literally in one click? So we do have all this concept of one-click deploy pieces of infrastructure that we are building. And the key for us now is how do we make it happen fast? So you need oracles on your chain. How do we make it happen now, right? So you do one click, you deploy your chain, and you have oracles already there. So we didn't want to go into oracles ourselves, but here we partner, for example, with Chaos Lab and Stork, and we make sure that they are deployed on every single rollup where we are. We build an interface for our customers where they can go and say, I just want ETH price, push into my chain every 5 seconds, or if this threshold is met. And with 2 clicks, you have your chain with oracles. And like that, we are simplifying all these moving pieces that we are observing that this developer needs, right? Because that's the first phase. We cannot think about how do we optimize the journey. We are facing developers waiting for 4 weeks for one of the providers to deploy on their chain. So that's the low-hanging fruit for us. This is where we really want to push the developer experience and be sure that you go to Gelato and you get everything. Or if we cannot provide it to you, we will connect you with the best partners in the industry, like, for example, Dynamic when it comes to Wallet-as-a-Service. And then is where we start to work with them on, okay, what problems do you want to try to solve now that are not even feasible because the infrastructure is not there, because we don't support it, or for example, when we work with the Mega ETH team and we try to deploy our services there, it's like, oh, now we have a milliseconds blocks, and maybe our Web3 functions have to be adapted to that and support to that. So we have to catch up and do some catch up also with our infrastructure that now suddenly is extremely efficient. So it is a combination of what customers are doing, what other participants in the industry like Mega ETH are doing, that are also pushing you to innovate and to improve your services.
Definitely. Speaking of like partners and integrations, like how do you or like Gelato go about finding those like best teams to work with, and also for like other builders in the space that think they might be compatible to work with Gelato? Like how can they go about, getting in touch with the team, I guess?
Yeah, definitely. That's actually my small kingdom. I usually are the one that is like constantly looking for new providers that can just improve our offering, right? So we are quite opinionated. We try to work with the best, but we have a marketplace that is open in our website, and we are constantly looking for what are those new providers innovating that we can partner and definitely help our customers, right? Because at the end of the day, we all want the same. We want our customers to have the best, all the tools for them to succeed. So reach out to me. Happy to talk to you. I talk to at least 2 or 3 teams per week. Sometimes things that doesn't align because of timelines or because priorities or because we already have a preferred partner. But always happy to talk with teams.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, that's exciting because it becomes a pretty hefty network advantage that you guys have once you have all of the best options and you have the partnerships in place to spin up a chain. And you automatically have PIF, maybe you automatically have a chain link, maybe you automatically have, I mean, you could take this really to the extent of you want to spin up an entire ecosystem. You could spin up a chain that has like an entire DeFi ecosystem with all the primitives already right there. You could have an Aave right there. You could have a native stable coin from day one. You could have like a layer 0, all this stuff. So I think that's really powerful. And I actually personally didn't even really know that you guys were getting into the Rollup-as-a-Service until recently. So, I mean, you said you started on this about a year ago. What was the shift? What were the signs that made you guys go and say like, we're going to go all in on this. This is the next product that we're going to start working on?
There were definitely enough signs in the industry that this was a topic that was not just temporarily, but there are clear signs that at this stage, if the industry grows, then if you have an application with enough users, you will need your own block space, right? We are talking about user experience here, and you don't want to offer a worse user experience for your users because the network that you choose is congested, right? There's no need for that.
Yep.
And I think that the critical point was also when we understood that users at the end of the day, they don't care much, right? It's like this is a rollout at L2 and an L1 or an L3. As long as I can use a tool that is great for me, it gave me purpose, it add me value, is enough, right? And we are seeing this trend now. And actually, there was a great post that we published yesterday. There is this whole controversy on L1s and the canonical bridge and how secure are these L2s and how funds are flowing into L2s. And if you go basically to L2bit, which is basically this place where you can see the source of truth of how these rollups are functioning and the security models of the rollups, you can observe that for big rollups like Base, for example, majority of the liquidity is not going through the canonical bridge by firm partners across, right? And then if the majority of the assets are bridged through a cross, then you're not secured by the canonical bridge. Then it doesn't make sense for you to be a rollup. You're just a sovereign rollup, right? It's like, so that proves that at the end of the day, what matters is the user experience. Users don't care. And users don't care if this is an L1 or an L2 or how many sequencers or validators are there as long as it is secure. And that gave us the confidence to go all into rollups. And I think that fast forwarding now is like it was a great decision. We are running more than 50 rollups and 30 more coming soon. We have Ink from Kraken, one of the big ones, of course, but then we have across the board, right? We have Raya, which is a perp DEX. We have List, which is another general purpose chain. Many games. So definitely we believe in the world where every app will have their own block space.
Yep.
There will be many flavors and shapes of rollups. There won't be a Orbit or OP. This is expanding. So rollups is definitely a growing topic. And if you want to offer the best experience, you would choose that.
Yeah, it's becoming more and more like you want to be able to customize your environment to fit exactly what your application needs. Some applications need, like you said, like tons of block space. Some of them need like really, really fast time to finality, or at least like soft finality. So yeah, it definitely just makes sense to be able to control that environment for your application specifically, especially as we start to get into a place where like pushing the limits of what we can do with blockchains and L2s. I mean, it's good timing that we had this today, because I think just recently there was that game on Base, which like they're saying it like crashed Base or whatever. But I think it's a great example of like why you brought up like you don't want to share your block space with the network. You want to be able to control that yourself as some applications grow to a certain scale and have a certain complexity. They have these needs. Do you think that if I don't even know what the name of the game is, but do you think that if they had like maybe like a custom rollup from Gelato, could they have supported this scale?
Absolutely. We have Plainance that is doing, I don't remember the number of transactions. They are a game, they're a very fun game, and they have tons of users. So definitely there is evidence for that. But I also wanted to add, when you was talking about customizations, I think that rollups will also enable institutions to finally come in, because now I don't have to have a risk of sharing the block space on a chain with funds that maybe I don't want my application to touch, but I can have my own rollup, which is OFAC compliance, KYC, whatever type of setup you want is already feasible. We are running some of them stealth mode, but really extremely bullish on that. I think that institutions are finally coming. Many of them are exploring. It takes time, right? It's like those decisions are usually takes even a few years when they build and test and then they go live, but it is happening. So rollouts, I think that are going to be key on that.
Yeah, that is really exciting. So yeah, that level of customization, obviously with a little bit of tweaking to the underlying, how do you persist to the data layer, you can just have the sequencer impose any kind of validations that you need to be compliant and require AML, KYC, stuff like this. So I think that's another really big unlock. And I think you're absolutely right. It's like these institutions, even if they're fine with like sharing their block space and all this other stuff that comes along with being on a public network, they literally cannot be, because they have to be able to like validate who's able to use their transactions and their applications and stuff like this, or even maybe even use the network that they're on. I mean, really, the regulatory framework there is kind of like a black box to me, but
Yes, I think that there will be, could be that the uptake that we are seeing on interest for institution is also because, okay, US also shifted toward being more
yeah,
pro crypto and regulations should come out soon. And that will basically unlock, hopefully, the institutional adoption
yeah,
because definitely is going to elevate the whole industry.
100%. Yeah, and I think if there is a way to make it happen where these institutions are coming on and they're sort of adding on their surface area into the composability of DeFi, and they're like, if it's even possible in a regulatory environment to have that capital composed with DeFi, I think that will be extremely meaningful for the rest of the industry to be able to have, maybe some kind of an interoperability with whatever their app chains look like, etc. But I mean, from somebody who's like kind of on the cutting edge of interfacing with some of these institutions, is there anything that you could say about like what is important to them? What are they looking to build towards?
Definitely compliance.
Yeah.
So being to able to run a chain that is compliant with different type of regulations, depending where the organization is from, and the local regulations and legislation. That's the first topic. And
Yeah.
then customizations at the chain level especially regarding how this can scale, right? Because these institutions, of course, they're coming with the mindset that they will grow it, right? They want to scale it up.
Hmm.
So is this really going to scale, and how are you going to scale it, and what are the opportunities there? So this is where we see a big opportunity for ABC, which is our sovereign framework, because it's something that we build in-house and we can customize, or we can enable that customization layer that other frameworks, for example, cannot do.
Yeah.
For many reasons, right? For example, we saw lately that OP decided to deprecate the custom gas token support, which was a key component for many of the projects. And then I think that because they want to be more Ethereum aligned, and then of course that leaves an opportunity in the market as well. So it will be depending the type of institution, but definitely there is a difference here between crypto native projects that they will, for example, care about being part of the super chain.
Yeah.
While an institution is like, why would they care about that, right? So it's
Yeah.
like they just need a technology that they know that they can maybe modify our own in the future because it's open source, right? That can be compliant with all the regulations, and then from there they can go and run all the experiments
Yeah.
and start to build their own products.
Definitely. Yeah.
We do have experience working with institutions. We've been running a rollup for Fox Media
Yeah.
for quite some time. And what I really like that use case is because it's not about money. It's not about incentives. What Fox was basically trying to do, they were trying to hash content and push it on chain so everybody can validate if a piece of content was tempered.
Yeah.
And yeah, guess what? You cannot do that on Ethereum because every piece of content will be, I don't know, $5, maybe at some point $100. Hopefully, if gas goes up, the price also goes up. So they needed their own block space. They onboarded other publishers like the New York Times. So I really like that use case. I think that we will see more of those ones. Institutions just adopting blockchain because it's a way of doing things that you cannot do today on a trustless manner.
Yeah.
So really happy about this use case. I hope that we can see more of that.
Yeah, that's an incredibly interesting one, especially because as AI is like increasingly powerful in terms of like just replicating like media that you really can't even tell if it's real or fake. Like this is starting to become, and maybe that was even the impetus for them starting to do this. I don't know, but I can imagine this is going to be like, that's really the tool that we have to combat AI and being able to verify this stuff on chain. So I can imagine that's going to have like pretty good product market fit with the rest of the media industry. So you mentioned institutional players are coming in. They have a lot of considerations, but like obviously compliance and everything like this, and they want to, probably run their tests, and they're slowly building in the dark, in the shadows. They're building some magnificent, use cases for this technology. I was interested, have any teams been like particularly worried or curious about like the cybersecurity implications, or like have they, like brought in their own teams to look at like, hey, how does this stuff, what is the risk model of these chains? What is the risk model of these applications? Are they even interested in insuring their chains and insuring the assets that they have there? Like what are some of the concerns that you've heard there?
All of them and many more. So you guys are in the security space, so you know, and all of these conversations takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that they do many more checks internally that we are not aware of.
Yeah.
But of course, security, it is one of the main concerns. But it's also true that we are seeing first is we are exploring, right?
Yeah.
What are the capabilities? What can we do here? Is this a good fit? What are the commitments? Can we just try? And then when you really are ready to go live is when you do all this scrutiny, right? We saw with Kraken when we've been working with them for more than a year, right? Before they finally launched before they launched Ink with us. So different phases on the journey of launching a rollup, especially for institutions where it takes time. But yeah, definitely security, it is one of the key topics.
Yeah, that's incredibly interesting. And I'm particularly interested to see if where it goes, in the sense that maybe these institutional players want all of their DeFi to be insured. And like, if you're going to have smart contracts, you're going to have smart contract risk, and you're going to have the risk of some kind of a smart contract level exploit. You could have the risk of some kind of chain level exploit, or like some like super long reorg or something like this. I'm interested to see like what kind of compliance is made standard for the traditional financial world. Like, are they going to want it insured? Are they going to want, some of these things? So we'll see how that sort of plays out.
Yes, I think that we will see that playbook in the next 12 to 18 months, right?
Yeah.
We will start to see this adoption from institutions. Most likely we will come up with those, okay, these are the steps, this is what have to be checked. That will also be beneficial for the rest of the industry.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, that's the thing. If they establish like, here's what is compliant for us, here's the cybersecurity practices and systems that we're trusting with trillions of dollars, ultimately, hopefully, then, the rest of DeFi can take that. And I mean, if we can all share in that procedure and get like get the hack rate to like a P99.99999, that's where we need to be able to scale this. So yeah, definitely interesting.
Hackers are getting smarter and smarter, and they get access to all the tools, and they use just the tools to get to find more opportunities. So yeah, definitely that's a hard one to beat, but I'm optimistic as you. I hope that we can bring it close to zero.
Yeah, we've got to. I mean, really, it's imperative for us to be able to take this technology to really where it can be. Like, I mean, obviously there's the UX constraints, there's the regulatory constraints, and then the cybersecurity constraints as well. But we've got to solve all three of those. I think they're all getting solved at the same time, which is really exciting where we're at right now.
Yeah, definitely a lot of progress.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I actually didn't know that you guys were behind the Ink chain deployment. I know they launched with USDT 0 initially on the chain. Were you guys involved at all in that partnership there on getting that on chain?
I won't be able to go into the details on that because I was not involved, but most likely we have to support on our side. But this is not something that we drive.
Yeah, because I mean, it is something that, depending on your use case, what you want to spin up, you are going to want like some kind of a native stablecoin on the chain to help bootstrap the DeFi economy there. And is that something that you guys are thinking of offering, like right off the jump, is like partnering with one of these cross-chain stablecoins?
Yes, we do actually have already a few partners on that front, especially when it comes to native yield that allows you basically when users as bridging USDC, for example, under the hood, it gets pushed into pooling on any protocol, right? And then users can earn while holding the stablecoin in your rollup. We definitely saw a lot of interest on that model. I don't really know if there is a chain with that on production. We do have a few of our customers already using it, but not to the extent where every single asset goes through this model. There are a few partners there that are that are quite helpful to enable this for any rollup, and you can really get a rollup with native yield extremely easy, I would say, with a few clicks. So it is a model that we see.
Yeah. Do you see really any other competitors in your space that are also sort of tackling this problem of spinning up L2s, spinning up ecosystems in like one click?
There are definitely competitors. There are really good and tough competitors out there. Alchemy joined the party last year at the end of the year. And of course, that Alchemy brings with them all the good practices and all the bundling opportunities that they have with all the rest of the services that they have. But Conduit, Caldera, they're also OGs on the Rollup ecosystem. So those are, I will say, the main competitors that we have at this stage.
Yeah, and like from working on the product side, what kind of KPIs and like metrics do you guys measure to see like where you guys are standing in relation to some of the other offerings? What are you guys trying to improve specifically? What do those look like internally?
So internally, what the main KPI or what we really care about is we've been running now chains for more than a year. That means that those contracts are being renewed, right? And it's like, are these customers sticking with us? Are we helping these customers also to be able to survive, right? Because we are seeing this trend of many projects launching their own rollups, but most likely at some point, some of those rollups are going to die, right? I don't think that we are prepared for that. It's like, how do you wind down a chain? What do you do with all the assets that are on that chain? So this is actually that we also take care and we try to work with the teams of how do we make your chain profitable, right? How can we configure your chain? Can we change the block time? Can we work with different alternative DAs to make the cost of running your chain as low as possible so you are profitable, you have a chance, you can get enough time to bootstrap liquidity and uses on your chain. So definitely that's the main one. It's like the renewal, the stickiness of our customers, because that means that we are doing our job. We are helping them. We are bringing all the moving parts that they need to build. And of course, then is, okay, how do we fit in the industry, right? It's like there are different flavors. Some competitors are focusing on different type of technologies. We are mostly focused, of course, only on EVM and now all into sovereign rollups with ABC, which we do believe that is the future. So tracking also there on where the industry is going as well.
Yeah, and with your sovereign rollups, is that EVM, obviously it's EVM compatible. Do you support other languages for smart contracts or is it just EVM?
It's EVM compatible. The only big difference here is customizable. So you can do things that you cannot do with other stacks. For example, we've been running ABC chains with 7702 now for a few months, right? So basically, customers have already been building on top of it, leveraging these EIPs that are not in production yet for other stacks, but you can get it. And then you have the benefit of not having an enshrined bridge to any settlement layer. Then therefore your cost of running your chain is lower because you don't have to pay a tax, which is not needed because as we already described, at the end of the day, nobody uses a canonical bridge. You don't want to wait 7 days, right? This is ridiculous. Usually you want to use a cross or any other protocol that allows you to go in and out in a few seconds. And then you don't need, for that reason, you don't need a canonical bridge. Then for sovereign rollups is a compelling solution for most of the projects out there.
Yeah, and is the goal to get as many different kind of projects onto their own sovereign rollup and continue to get that feedback and improve? What is like the near-term goal for you guys? What are you working on right now?
Well, I don't think that every single project needs their own block space, at least not now.
At least, yeah.
It's not just a matter of pushing them to run their own rollup. They may not need it now, but that's where we come with other services that we have, like Relay and Web3 functions or oracles that they may also need on other rollups, right? Or other chains that may not be our rollups. And a few more services that we are working on secret that we will soon release that basically satisfy those needs that we're constantly finding. I think that this is one of the best things of working on the industry, which is we work extremely close with the developers. We know what they are doing. As you mentioned before, there are a lot of opportunities out there. It's like we're constantly battling to decide what things do we should not do, right? Because
Yeah.
like there are so many opportunities that actually we are now going through the process of planning the Q2, and it's like, okay, how do we cut? What things do
Yeah.
we don't want to prioritize now? So definitely we will have a lot of things going out this quarter.
Yeah, and how do you separate the signal from the noise with like determining like this is where the deep value is that we actually want to invest in and provide value to developers versus this is more of just like a nice to have. How do you sort of delineate that?
Yeah, I think that I leverage a lot of the founders here. They've been in the
Yeah.
industry for many years, and they are able to read things that I maybe miss. But for example, a good example is CK, right? Everybody talk
Yeah.
about CK and
Yeah.
CK rollups, but CK is not ready. It's still extremely expensive.
Yeah.
Most of the CKs are just TEE under the hood. Therefore, we made a decision at some point last year of not working with any CK stack. And it was kind of gut decision and internal information on how the industry and the technology works, right? While, for example, all our competitors went into CK, while I don't think that there was a massive adoption, right?
Yeah.
So it is a mix between, as you said, filtering the noise and the whole marketing hype and what really works and what really customers care about, which at the
Yeah.
end of the day, they just need a blockchain, right? They just need a chain that works, that is cheap to run, that is secure enough for their purpose, that they can customize in the future, and they just need all of these other services on top of it.
Yep.
So that's where we see the opportunity. How do we keep building things to make easy the adoption for developers to start and then to scale, of course.
Yep. Solid fundamentals, just talking to customers, seeing what their pain points are, working backwards from there, and giving them what they need to solve those. 100%.
Sounds easy.
Yeah, it sounds easy. Yeah.
I guess this is a different direction, but you mentioned, like getting into the space the very first time, the Ohm forks, right? And all that stuff. And I guess fast forward to today, like all the partners that you're working with, what are you like personally bullish on? What projects are you interacting with nowadays?
So maybe I'm biased because they are running or they're using one of our services, but Infinex, definitely, I think that they are building one of the best wallet experiences in the industry. And then maybe I'm guilty because I'm circling on our customers and testing mostly our customers' products, but Ostium, Infinex, again, big fan of Courtyard. And there are a few projects that are coming that are quite excited. But stealth mode, so cannot share more.
Yeah, a lot of interesting stuff in the works. A lot of big UX boosts for a lot of popular DeFi apps today that are just going to get easier to use. And of course, all that's being powered by Gelato. So really excellent what you guys are making happen for the rest of the industry. And I was also interested, like, what do you see as the number one bottleneck for Gelato from where you guys are today to getting to where you want to be with even more projects, even more services, powering the greatest Web3 experience? Maybe even there's like a mobile experience or something like this. Like, what is the bottleneck to getting to where you want to be?
I will say that definitely one of the challenges that we are having is with hiring. It's like we would like to do many more things and grow the team way more, but we want to keep the bar extremely high.
Yep.
And we are struggling to fill some positions, especially when we talk about Rust developers or smart contract developers. And I'm not entirely sure if it is because many people left the industry based on what happened the last 12 months. But we were expecting to definitely have a different size of team at this stage.
Yeah.
And we are struggling. I would like to hear if that's something that you're also seeing on the industry. But definitely, as I mentioned before, it's like everything is full of opportunities, right?
Yep.
So I think that there are no excuses. It's just time, and we need to execute, and we need to be smart what we do and what we don't do. I think that at the end of the year, the amount of things that we are going to unlock, developers will be able to build really cool stuff.
Yeah.
So hopefully we get there and we can fill many positions so we can get there faster.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the hardest parts about building in DeFi is hiring and building out an organization of people who have the experience. Like, I mean, literally, if you want to hire somebody who has like 4 years of experience in DeFi, that like barely exists. Like there's a small handful of those people. And to be able to find it, it's like typically when you're building a company, if you want to scale really fast, you want to go and you want to find the people that have been there and done that. Like they've already, scaled a certain type of product in your vertical. But when you're working on the edge, like Gelato is with like a lot of this Rollup-as-a-Service stuff, like there's nobody who's been there and done that. There's nobody who's gone and, brought this to institutions already and scaled it to 100 million in revenue or anything. Like, so it's like you've got to find the people, and it's almost like you've got to go more on intuition, more on values than anything to be able to build an organization to do this kind of stuff that's on the edge. So yeah, definitely hiring is hard in DeFi. And I think even more so for the senior folks, especially, from what we've experienced, it is extremely hard to find the right senior, more experienced individuals. But then once you do find them and you get like the system that's working for you down, then it becomes a lot easier, and it almost is kind of like a flywheel effect where you can get even more senior people just from having the connections from those people, because of course they all know each other, and yeah, you just get that reputation for being an amazing place where those experienced folks go to work. So I think it definitely is like it's really hard 0 to 1, and then I think it gets a little bit easier. But then of course if you're trying to go to massive scales, or you're trying to get to like hundreds of employees, that is like really hard. That's a really hard problem to solve. But so I mean I'm right there with you, and I think a lot of the DeFi companies working in DeFi are as well. What's your strategy been so far to try and fill those positions?
Networking. I
Yep.
think that events has been a good place for us to meet with really interesting people, especially when there are those. I'm not talking about the big events, but more like
Yeah.
these side events that
Yeah,
are not even
definitely.
happening where the big events is happening, but it's like some technical events here, even in Switzerland, in Zurich, where we can go there and meet
Yep.
developers just building something on the side. And those are really at least for us at Gelato, we have this startup and entrepreneurship mindset where we want people with that kind of with autonomy and ownership,
Yep.
agency. We want people to join us and be part. I don't really think that having the experience in the industry, yeah, for some roles it matters, right?
Yep.
But as you said, you're not going to find a developer with 5 years of experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you just need to find someone that is able to learn fast, right?
Yep.
Someone that's able to learn fast, to adapt. A generalist, probably. I'm coming from Web 2.0, right?
Yep.
So definitely, I think that it is feasible. But if you want to keep the bar high, then that's when we started to struggle.
Yeah.
And to me, my view is that many people left the industry, hope they come back.
Hmm.
I think that especially with what happened last year at the end of the year with president of US launching their own
Yeah.
token. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's like for the optics for my Web 2.0 friends that are working on Facebook or Google, it's like, oh, guys, what's going on with the industry? It's all
Yeah.
about,
That's,
like, hey, this is not my industry. This is not
yeah.
what we do. This is
It's,
something that happens in the blockchain, but we don't do that, right? We don't launch tokens. And then I don't think that is a good image, right? If you are
yeah.
looking to change your career or to explore something new, unless you're very curious like us and you ended up in the rabbit hole of DeFi and you
Yeah.
understood from the outside, you see what's happening and it's like, okay, maybe it's not the time. And then AI happened and a lot of people
Yeah.
pivoted to AI or they decided to enjoy AI. And that took a big pool of talent as well. But definitely to grow the industry, we need talent. So I think that we need to do better here to
Yeah.
convince people to join us.
Absolutely. No, it's so unfortunate that that side of crypto is like only what gets covered in the media. Like that's like exclusively what they talk about is like the coins and the price and the charts and the meme coins and like all the stuff with Libra. Oh man, it's like just a huge
Well, yeah, my president helped a bit with all of this drama.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I don't even know what that situation is, but yeah, it's just unfortunate. I think the entrance of institutions, though, I think it's signaling a change. I think it's like it's the beginning of some news that's not related to price, right? It's news of like utility that could actually reach the broader audience of people who are not already, in DeFi. They don't see all these things being built sort of in the dark, but when it does come out that hey, JP Morgan has built an entire settlement layer, using, some kind of a roll up, maybe from Gelato. But Yeah, I think that's the kind of news that will start to shift us away from this like meme coin craze. At least I hope. So we'll see if that happens. But more on like the hiring side, where if anybody's listening and they're interested, they see the vision of what you guys are building and they want to join in, where should we send them? Do you guys have like a page for job listings?
Yes, absolutely. Gelato.network/careers. We have
Yep.
a bunch of roles opens across many departments: engineering,
Yep.
product, BD, account management. I think that we are looking for people across the whole organization. So you can also reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn. Happy to connect.
Of course. Yeah, we'll have all of those down below. So if anybody's interested in, working on, I mean, really, you guys have a lot of different work that somebody could come in and contribute to. You've got everything like VRF to the relayer service to rollups as a service. So it seems like somebody can come in and if they're interested in multiple parts of the stack, multiple parts of like what goes on technologically under the hood, they can have an opportunity to explore all those layers. So I think that to me is honestly like a big advantage that you guys have. And also all the cool teams that you guys get to work with. I mean, you guys are
Exactly.
working with some of the coolest DeFi products that are out there today.
We have more than 600 projects
Yeah.
building using our services. So I think that most of them at some point they touch one of our services
Yeah.
and you get to work with them. I get to talk to them once a while. We have Telegram with them and you learn
Yeah.
what they're working on. And it's like, it's fascinating. It's
Yeah.
definitely the best part is when you talk to them, you understand what are the problems and you start to connect the dots and you uncover opportunities. Definitely, I'm super excited about that. Right? It's like we are on the moment. We're still so early. I know that this
Yeah.
is being repeated and repeated, but it's like we are still so early. There are so
Yeah.
many things to be done. So definitely, if you are looking to jump into the industry, Gelato is a good place.
Yeah, dude, it's awesome to see like all the value that you guys are providing to the developer teams, and then that gets leveraged into all the work that the developer teams are doing to provide value to the end users. Like I must imagine, like I don't know if you guys track this at all, but the amount of people that have used your services through all of your like client applications must be like 80% of DeFi or something. So that's pretty exciting. You guys have like the distribution, you have the usage there. So if anybody's looking to come and contribute to that, definitely go and check out the careers page there. And then of course, if anybody wants to, if they happen to be interested in running like a roll up as a service or any of the other products that you guys offer, anywhere we should send them, just check out gelato.network.
Gelato.network, if you really want to launch a rollup, you can do by yourself. It literally takes 2 or 3 clicks, depending the
Oh,
configuration that you want, and you have your rollup running in 5 minutes. That's something crazy that we did
yeah,
this year. We were okay. The average industry to launch a rollup is
yeah,
20 minutes or 30 minutes, depending. And we
yeah,
say, what if we just make it faster? There is
yeah,
no any benefit, right? At the end of the day, you are launching a rollup. You can wait 20 minutes, right? It's a
yeah,
one-time thing, but why not? Let's make it faster. Let's remove all the
yeah.
complexity. Let's push the limits, and you can launch your rollup in less than 5 minutes. So definitely worth to try. And then just happy to talk. Reach out to us on Twitter or Telegram. We are always constantly talking with many developers that sometimes they're just looking for some advice, right? And they ended up going with a different provider, but they just want to chat with us, and we love to do that.
That's excellent. Dude, 5 minutes is crazy. Time to value, huh? Very low.
No excuses to launch your own rollup.
Yeah. It only takes 5 minutes and a couple of clicks. Well, that's awesome, dude. Is there anything else that you guys want to draw attention to? Anything else to discuss before we wrap it up here?
I think that we cover a lot of topics.
Yeah.
So
Well, dude, once again, thank you so much for hopping on. I think amazing conversation. Learned about all the different areas that you guys are tackling and some of the coolest projects that you guys are onboarding and helping them build. I mean, to be honest, there's a lot of stuff that you guys are doing that I didn't even realize that you guys were partaking in, like Ink. That was a huge launch. So I mean, first of all, like congrats on getting that to production. I'm sure you guys have some even bigger stuff in the pipeline. So definitely excited to see that coming out in the coming months. But yeah, dude, thank you so much for hopping on, and it was a great chat.
thank you for having me.